Hello there, welcome back to my channel, Snips by Kelly. Tonight I have a 2-page layout for you here that continues on in the Skylark series. So I'm going to be working with Waylon James tonight, our youngest grandson. And he has this great blanket in the background of this photo that has a little bit of glacier, a little bit of green, maybe kind of a limeade color. He's wearing this little Western shirt that has glaciers and browns and greens. There's the little bunny laying there with him that is kind of a shortbread color. He has a little bit of toffee in the background and some more shortbread in the background. And I just thought that these photos would be perfect for Skylark. So if you tuned in to the last two videos, we did this layout, which was layout number 2 in the series, where we did some stenciling with the Skylark stencil on the transition. We used some triangles in the corner. We did some distressing on the photo mats, and I will link this full process video in the description. And then we also used more florals on layout number 1, where I did Avery Jean and Hattie Elaine and added lots and lots of those Isabella florals, some of our layered butterflies, and it was really feminine. We did more of that stenciling in the background, so I thought I would take a little bit of a turn. We're going to come back to the florals in layout 4 and 5, but I thought I would make a more masculine or neutral layout here that could go in either direction. So I still have lots of bits in my junk gypsy tray, and I went over all of these pieces in great detail in the first video in the series, which I'll link in the description, and it talks about the full product bundle that we're using here and all of the other add-ins, including the layered butterflies, the beautiful doilies from Hope and Kindness, and the florals and the leaves that we were getting from Sprigs and Leaves, as well as the Isabella collection. So I have two 12 by 12 glacier in the background, which I felt went really well with Waylon's shirt and with the blanket. And I created these scalloped frames on the Cricut, and the scalloped frames are actually 11 1/4 by 11 1/4, and I'm backing those with some limeade, and I feel like that's going to go perfectly with Waylon's shirt. Now you could just use strips of limeade, probably 1/2-inch strips, to cover up the holes on the scallop frame. But I did a 10 1/4 by a 10 1/4 limeade. Usually I gut things out. And so now we have this great graph pattern, this kind of shortbread graph pattern, and I've cut the original size 9 1/2 by 9 1/2, and then I cut the interior from 1 inch to 8 1/2 inches all the way around to gut that frame so that I can use the interior of the pattern paper. I should go back and do that with my my backgrounds as well. I typically do, so I'm not sure why I didn't do that. And the only reason for doing that is to conserve paper and to be able to use that that precious pattern paper in the center. Now, I could build right on the center of that black, but I actually want to pop up a layer there. So I actually created an 8 by 8 black so that I could pop that up. And if you're not one that cares about dimension, you could totally build on that interior piece. I wanted just a little bit more of a lip or an edge on that frame, and so that 8 by 8 black is going to be perfect for me. So really the theme of this video and the focus of this video is layering frames. So what we've done is we've started with the 12 by 12 background, and we've just layered upon layer upon layer to layer those frames. Now I'm going to take some 2 1/4 by 2 1/4 inch squares of all of the pattern paper and a little bit of cardstock, and we're going to build a small grid inside. But I love the idea. I think I think it's this current catalog that has a cute layout. I think it's a pattern from our Make It From Your Heart Volume 6 that has a little square in a grid that has a little flat pulled back, and there's a little bit of paper peeking out from underneath. And since we have the great Skylark stencil, I thought it might be fun to do some stenciling under a white daisy piece and then pull back that corner in the upper left-hand corner to just create a little bit of a fun element in that upper corner. So now you can see the different 2¼ inch squares that I have. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the stripe, 1, 2, 3 of the green limeade chevron. I have the one lagoon cardstock and one limeade cardstock, and then I have 2 of the graft and 2 of the pattern, and it's going to work out perfect. I actually just love the look of this just the way it is right now. I have the right side showing what it looks like popped up, and right now the left side isn't. So I love the dimension in that, but you don't have to pop up that top 8x8 black if you don't want to. Also, my photos really lent themselves to the glacier background, and I think it's perfect, but you would be amazed at how many colors will look perfect with this grid and with that scalloped frame. So I'm showing you here some different colors. We have lagoon, we have white. I'm going to try it with a little bit of jade. We'll use a little bit of shortbread, a little bit of limeade. We can use a little bit of acorn, a little bit of toffee, and you can see that based on your photos, you can change that background up and make it coordinate perfectly. It's amazing to me how different a layout can look with that edge of that background. So just the edges showing through. As far as my scalloped frame, what I do a lot, it's probably a signature for me. I love stitched backgrounds. I love scallop backgrounds. I love layered backgrounds. I love that edge. That's just something that I probably overuse just because I love it so much, and I think it adds so much to a layout. And I just go into the Cricut and I either type squares, like scallop squares, or just squares, and you can find all different kinds of edges on squares, or I type overlay, or I type let's see, frame, overlay, frame, or square. And you can find all kinds of different edged backgrounds. And I also use a lot of labels. If you type a label, you will find little scallop labels and little different shapes that work great for background pieces. And then you can resize those to the size that you want for your background. So I'm showing you here how I want to put another 2¼ by 2¼ inch square up in that top. I'm going to fold about I would say a little over half, but just the corner down. And I think you could use a little glue dot. I use some foam tape, but I noticed later in the video that it kind of pops back up. So I would maybe use some, liquid glass or some heavy duty adhesive, or maybe a glue dot you could try that would fold that corner back and then hold that in place. And then we'll do a little bit of treatment on the white square underneath. As far as my photos, I have 4 3x3 photos, and I have done an 1/8 inch around the outer edge in black, so 3 1/8 by 3 1/8, and then I have a 4x6 photo on top, and then we're going to use a 4x6 flip flap, and I have a 4x6 on bottom and a 4x6 white daisy that I'm going to do some treatments on for the journaling inside. Now you can have 3 photos to create a 7 photo layout. I'm just actually experimenting now with my ink. So I have limeade, I have jade, I have toffee, I have lagoon, all the colors in this series, and I'm not quite sure. I'm a little scared to just go ahead and ink on the square and then hope it works. So I'm actually just experimenting with a few little leaves from the Skylark stencil, and I'm just going to experiment with that and see which background I like the best based on Waylon James' photos. I thought this was perfect. Like, you know how a new line comes out and you don't have a plan for the new line, because this just launched, and it launched on December 1st, and so I did not have Skylark. Skylark is a bring back your pack, and I was not a close to my heart maker when Skylark came out the first time. So this is a new pack to me, but many close to my heart customers and makers out there remember the original Skylark. So what close to my heart will do is they will just maybe update a few colors in a series and maybe do an updated, little bits and things that go with it, and they will bring it back because it was a popular series in the past, and they'll bring it back as a special. So it's kind of fun. But since it was a new series to me and I had not seen it at all, I didn't have a photo plan for it, but I love when you find those photos and you're like, this was made for these photos. That little blanket of Waylon's has every color in it that's in this series, and then his shirt on top of that. And what are the odds that I hadn't used these photos yet? I did some of the photos from this age in different layouts, but I kind of kept like same outfits together, and I didn't do this outfit yet, so I was so happy. All right, so I went with Limeade. I tried some of the other colors and they seemed too bold, and I ended up going with super, super light Limeade. The other colors seemed too dark or too bold, or they just were like, they didn't blend really well in that upper corner. So I was just going to find a couple little leaves only and go ahead really, really lightly on my final copy here. I did practice on some scrap paper and put those leaves up there in the upper corner. Now, again, if you don't like dimension, you can leave those photos on the right flush, but I do end up popping those up as well. So when I talk about a simple layout like this is simple squares. It's just simple backgrounds on top of more simple backgrounds. When you have a simple layout like this, how I like to give it the pizzazz is the dimension. So I have the 8x8 black piece popped up, and then I have the 3x3 photos on the right popped up as well. So now I have my junk gypsy tray, and so there's lots of things left in my junk gypsy tray, but some of them have more feminine qualities. Of course, the Isabella florals in there are probably not something that I'm going to use on Waylon's layout, although I've talked in the past about not being afraid to have masculine photos with florals. That doesn't bother me a bit, but I thought I could really focus on leaves and flourishes. When in doubt, if you need a neutral layout, flourishes and leaves are perfect because they go with boy, they go with girl, they go with man, they go with woman, they go with all different themes. A leaf, even though you look at Waylon James's photos, he's sitting on a rug and he has his little bunny and his little blanket, has nothing to do with leaves, but leaves and flourishes are just a great neutral additive to any layout. So what I want to do now is I want to go through and figure out a title. For the last two videos, you probably are laughing now because I have tried to use that Limeade title. I love that Limeade title. I tried to use it on layout 1. I tried to use it on layout 2, and it just didn't quite fit in size and shape. And so I'm just going to sort through some of these stickers from the sticker sheet and find some little elements that I think are going to go well with this layout. Now, if I haven't said it already in the video, the full supply list is in the description. Everything that I used in this layout, including some retired thin cuts, are still available on the shop site. And I went in great detail on all the treatments and how I created all the bits and all of the pieces that are in the bundle and the supply list in the very first video. And both the first and second layouts and videos in this series are linked in the description. And if you're tuning in here on layout number 3 of the series, you can pop on back to layout number 1 and catch all of those. And I also had shared that Skylark has its own workshop. It's a free download on the shop site, and it is a workshop that is 3 2-page layouts and some cards, and it's a great series of layouts. And so you can actually complete a full workshop with the Skylark series, or at the end of this whole series, I have 2 more videos after this one. I will have a cheat sheet offering, and I'm also trying to be super careful throughout each one of these videos to give you all of the measurements and good detail on here. So if you just want to pop in the video and grab your Skylark bundle and play along with me, I would love if you played along with me. So now I think that I have opted to You Make Me Happy. I think out of all the stickers in the collection, You Make Me Happy is absolutely perfect for Waylon's little happy face there. And I love the concept of it flipping over when the flip flap flips over. So I am inserting the 4x6 white daisy piece into the flip flap, and I actually like to adhere the top photo to my 4x6 piece so that no edges stick through. So when I put that into the flip flap, both of those pieces are flush on top of each other. And then of course I have that photo mat there that is the photo mat on the left is actually 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. And so it builds that frame around the flip flap. And I've opted to use a left hand, like the flip flap on the left hand side. And of course you take the adhesive off the back of the flip flap, and then you can center your photo first and then fold that adhesive layer over. Now we're going to do some treatments on the 4x6 piece. And I just did want to mention that some people, a lot of people actually will put their flip flap on the outside of the page protector. Other people will put our self-healing mat down and they'll make a slit in their page protector for that flip flap to peek through and slide through. So now I'm working with this really cute embedded piece that was in the pattern. There were some really cool little shapes that are built right into the Skylark pattern paper, and I have an extra little piece of that, so I fussy cut out the whole layer. And then on the zip strip there's these great words, and I thought how cute it might be to just layer that word on top of those existing pieces that I fussy cut out. That just gives me another little layer to work with. And I thought it would be cute to open up the flap and then have some stenciling again with the Skylark stencil and the limeade, just some leaves peeking out from underneath the little strips that were fussy cut out. I think we're going to need to add some distressing to those pieces, maybe with some toffee ink, just to kind of give them a kind of a roughed up feel, and really help it to blend. So what I'm doing is I'm just making it so the little leaves are going to peek out at the end of those little strips that we fussy cut out. And so I'm just finding some of the littlest leaves on the stencil, and that's the beauty of the stencil. This is a 12 by 12 stencil, and it does have some florals in it. If you tuned in to video 1 and 2 in this Skylark series, we did some lagoon stenciling with the lagoon stencil or the lagoon ink with some florals, because there's some really pretty florals embedded in these vines, and there's a lot of viney leaves of different sizes. And so now I've gone over the top and the edges of the journaling piece with limeade. And now I think I'm going to go ahead and add some toffee to these pieces. So I'm actually rubbing, and I have a soft blending brush here. So I actually get my mini ink blending tool just because it's a little harder. It has a harder tip, and it can, when doing corners and edges, it kind of helps to get that roughed up a little quicker because the blending brush is just a little bit too soft. You could use a sponge. You could use, we used to have some sponge daubers that we sold that many of my paper crafters out there still have. Those work great for these edges. And I just kind of like giving a little blur on the background of this piece and making it look a little rusticy and a little distressed. I'm going to do the same thing on the small doily. So in the first video in the series, I talked about the beautiful doilies that they're still available, and they were from our Hope and Kindness collection. And I made some large ones and some small ones of varying colors that coordinated with this set. And I'm using a few of those throughout. And I was thinking, nah, I don't know if I want a doily for Waylon, but it actually lent itself to this perfectly as just a great interest background piece. So I'm going to try to use that, but I did ink it with that toffee. So now I have a scratch piece of paper left over, or a small scrap of the chevron, the limeade chevron, and I'm going to put just a little scrap on the top. I'm not really measuring. I'm just kind of grabbing a scrap that looks like it's maybe about, it's probably a fourth or a third probably the way down on the You Make Me Happy sticker, so that when we flip that flap open, it has a visual element. And I actually don't do this on this layout, but I think I may go back and add like a little word sticker or something onto that even, because when you flip it over, it looks like a little chevron tag now. And so I didn't think of it when I did the layout, but I might go back and add either a stamped sentiment from the stamp set or an extra little sticker on that, or even some little journaling. You could put a date up there. Now I'm going to play. Now is the fun part. I'm going to add some little bits. So we have this little tag that was also embedded into the pattern paper that I fussy cut out of the pattern paper, and I roughed it up with a mini ink blending tool and some toffee ink. And I'm going to kind of see if I can toggle that and the doily underneath that title piece. Now, don't worry about placing a title on a photo. There was so much dead space in these photos. So both the interior photo on the flap and the top photo had a lot of space to the right of Waylon James. And it doesn't bother me one bit to have an overlapping sticker or an overlapping title or an overlapping element onto a photo. I know there are some people that love to separate their photos just like they separate food. They don't like them touching. So just like they don't like the food on their tray to touch, they don't like their bits to touch. I am a fan of overlapping bits. I just think it helps your eye to sort of take in the whole picture and not chunk things out. And having little bits and pieces underlapping and overlapping, I don't know if underlapping is a word, but I'm going to make one up, really just, sometimes you don't even know why your eye is pleased, but it's just so pleasing because everything is interconnected. Then you're making all the little bits connect. You're making one slide into another so that your eye doesn't get stuck in any one spot. And it's just a really fun way to take your layouts to another level and have them not look quite so boxy and separated. Even though this is boxy, when you look at the pattern, it is a boxy pattern. It's layered frames and it's squares, but it doesn't feel boxy, like your eye doesn't chunk things into parts. And so that's my scientific explanation for why I like my pieces touching. So now I'm playing with the leaves. So the flourishes again came out of sprigs and leaves. I just used two of them, one little black sprig and then one little leaf sprig. And then of course the other leaves are from the Isabella scrapbooking stamp set. And I've stamped some of those leaves on limeade and some of those leaves on jade, and I've stamped them in intense black and rubbed them with a little bit of toffee ink. If you don't have toffee ink, you will probably find that just about every single maker out there uses toffee like no other. We use it to do so much distressing on edges and just adding a little tone on tone. That is one. A lot of times paper crafters will say, well, I don't want to buy all the inks, but what are the most popular? Toffee is definitely on that list of one of my go-tos. So now I have a few little rounded stickers. Again, I distress that with toffee. And I'm experimenting with some of the little black die cuts. If you recall from the first video, we added in black die cuts instead of wood grain. If you stayed with the wood grain and the wood grain fits with your photos, and it would fit with mine as well, you can use your wood grain. Excuse me. You can also distress ink your wood grain shapes, and you can use like a little journaling pen on the outside. There's so many little things that you can do to jazz up these shapes, and I love that we have these shapes in our core catalog in so many colors. It's so great. You can use the same shapes but in different colors. So now just layering those little bits, I want to incorporate this little, I've been calling him a dragonfly. And he could be a firefly. I don't know, but I've been calling him a dragonfly, but I kind of think that the tail might be a little longer if he's a dragonfly. I think he might be a firefly. So I have one stamped in Lagoon, and I had one stamped in black, and I rubbed the wings with limeade, and I was trying to get the Lagoon to work, and it didn't really work. And so I think I'm going to go with the black one. And so now I'm loving that little secret journaling part there in the flip flap. I'm loving the leaf flourishes. I'm loving the layered frames. And just by doing a very simple basic layout, layering frame upon frame upon frame, you add so much interest to the layout, and I'm happy. I hope you're happy. I hope you've enjoyed layout number 3 in this series, and the turn that we took to make it a little bit more neutral or masculine or all-purpose. And I hope you love how it's coming together. If you haven't tuned in to layouts 1 and 2, pop on back and check those out. And coming up within just a couple days, we're going to have layout number 4, and we're going to return back to some of those florals for that. Thanks so much for watching and hanging with me. I can't wait to see what you do with the inspiration. If you've been entertained or inspired, hit subscribe, like, share, follow, and shoot me a comment. You're the ones that keep me going. Thanks for watching, and happy scrapping. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.